5:30 p.m. We will start the Monday, September 18th, 2023, 5:30 p.m. Finance and Purchasing Committee. Roll call, please.
Alderman Bolton. Alderman Hayes. Alderman Florian.
Present.
Alderman Guzman.
Present.
Alderman Newsom.
Present. We have a quorum. Can I get a motion, item C, approval of the minutes from August 21st, 2023? Can I get a motion?
I so move.
Alderman
Second.
Bolton, second by Alderman Florian. Are there any questions to the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item D, public comment. Is there anyone that wants to speak on any item on the agenda? You can go to the podium, give your name, sir.
Good evening. You know, I got a concern. I'm seeing 3 purchases of a 2023 Ford Explorer. I mean, are we buying these vehicles to look good? Because this is ridiculous that we're spending this much money on these vehicles like there's not enough city vehicles. With all of the things that's going on in the city, with all of the things that we need help with, we finna spend all this money on 3 brand new trucks. I mean, for a minute, I thought we was hiring for the governor's detail. I mean, we got to really think about how we are spending this money. Like, seriously. Our police department is still struggling. They still need help out there, just in case anybody didn't know. The violence is at an all-time high. And you mean to tell me we have no other place to put this money to? Because if we don't, I could think of one very important. These kids need something to do and somewhere to go. So maybe we could take a couple of these trucks and take that money and give it to the kids. That'd be a beautiful thing. Just need you guys to really think about this, all this money that we're spending on these Ford Explorers. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that wants to speak? Public comment? All right, we'll move on to item A, new business. Ordinance adopting a second amendment to the annual budget and a supplemental appropriation ordinance for the fiscal year beginning May 1st, 2023. Can I get a motion on the floor?
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Florian.
A second.
Second by Alderman Bolton. The annual budget and appropriation ordinance for the City of Waukegan for the fiscal year beginning May 1st, 2023 includes anticipated revenues and expenditures provided by a co-responder grant. The co-responder grant provides funding for a joint response by law enforcement officers and licensed social workers in response to mental health emergencies. The budget was initially created anticipating 3 sworn law enforcement officers through normal personnel funding and 3 professional social workers funded on a contractual basis. It has since been determined that it is in the best for workflow, accountability, and supervisory channels for the social workers to be duly qualified employees of the City of Waukegan and the Waukegan Police Department. It has also since been determined that a uniformed supervisory officer be assigned to direct the affairs of this new division. For this reason, it has been necessary to reallocate funding from contractual services to personnel salaries and benefits, and to increase the appropriation for vehicles by $105,000 to provide for 5 fully accessorized police vehicles. Are there any questions, or Alderman Florian?
I don't know who's going to answer. You?
Or what is your question?
So does the grant cover all of this?
100% of it, yes.
Okay, and for how long?
So the grant is given to us for 1 year, so it's been on, this is the 2nd year that, for the first year, it took a while for the state to get the program up and moving. They've extended it a 2nd year, so we are not sure how long, but we believe it'll be extended for a few years at least.
And we already have the social workers hired?
We do not, no.
Okay, so we want a supervisor for this unit, so that's over and above what you asked for originally, right? Were there gonna be just 3 social workers added, and then we're gonna use our officers we already had to pair with them, if I remember
Correct.
correctly?
Correct,
So now we're putting in a 4th person as a supervisor?
correct, an
And he'll
officer.
only be supervising these 5 people?
That's correct.
Okay. And then, what happens if we don't get the grant next year then? Do we have to fire all these people?
No, because they're gonna become city employees. So if we're gonna train, so we are gonna spend a lot of money because we do have a very large sum amount on this grant. We're gonna train them to be part of this, part of our response team in the city of Waukegan when we go to calls. And if we spend all this time and money in them, and once they're up and running and we have this unit now answering calls on the street, and then all of a sudden the grant goes away, then we have these professionals that we've trained that we are going to lose out on because someone else is going to gain all that training and experience. In the city of Waukegan, we've gone out to numerous other cities to speak with them about the programs that they have. And every city that we've talked to has increased their numbers, not decreased them. And in this city, we do have a great need for that. We spend a lot of time on our mental health calls, a lot of time. And that's where this program, these officers, this trained staff is going to focus on.
Don't get me wrong, I totally support this program, but when Deputy Chief Chastain first came to us, when we accepted this grant, he explained that he already had the 3 social workers in mind of who he was gonna hire, and that still hasn't happened.
No, that has not happened because there is a process to get them hired. So we are finally at that step where the job descriptions have gone out. So now we're just waiting for replies for those positions. We're gonna start to interview people.
Okay. So the 3 he had in mind didn't work out?
Oh, no, we still have people in mind, but we just,
Okay.
we have to give everyone an equal opportunity that's interested in the position.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Chief,
Yes, ma'am.
should we not get this grant next year, do you have any idea how much are we talking about starting these social workers with? Will we have to absorb that into your budget?
We would have to absorb it into the budget, but for us, it's going to be a big benefit. It truly will, because again, when we look at our call volume, and our call volume is based on the amount of calls that we get when it comes to mental health and the amount of time that officers spend on those calls. We're trying to direct more time and energy, especially on our violent calls in the community, where now they could focus on these calls that consume most of the time when our officers are out dealing with these type of calls. And that's whether it's crisis in the home, dealing with domestic violence, dealing with drug overdoses, dealing with homelessness issues, those kinds of things.
So are we looking to expand on this grant next year? Are we looking, is there anyone looking to keep getting this grant?
Yeah,
or-
we are.
Okay.
We absolutely are. That's one of our priorities. We are on top of it.
Okay.
We're going to make sure that every year we apply. We're very hopeful. It's looking hopeful for us, but we just can't, predict when the state makes those changes. But
Okay.
I think this is going to be very beneficial, and if we have to consume it within our budget, I believe that it'll be well worth it.
Okay.
Because of the job that we're expecting to come out of this unit.
Okay. Any more questions? Alderman Bolton?
Yes, I really appreciate the fact we're getting social workers, because we know our officers can't do everything, be position of authority and do social work. And I know our constituents have mentioned we need social workers. So working as social worker myself, I do understand. But also I understand not only this grant covers social workers, but I understand it also will cover the vehicles.
Yes,
Okay.
100% of the cost of the vehicles.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Bolton.
Aye.
Alderman Florian.
Aye.
Alderman Guzman.
Aye.
Alderman Newsome.
Aye. Motion carried. Item B, ordinance adopting a second amendment to the annual budget and a supplemental appropriation ordinance for fiscal year beginning May 1st, 2022. Can I get a motion on the floor?
I so move.
Motion by Alderman Bolton. Second.
I'll second.
Second by Alderman Florian. On April 18th, 2022, the Mayor and City Council of the City of Waukegan approved the ordinance number 22-0-47 entitled Annual Appropriation Ordinance and the Annual Budget for the City of Waukegan for the fiscal year beginning May 1st, 2022. And ordinance 22-0-47 was later amended on August 15th, 2022 by ordinance number 22-0-146 to provide for revenues and expenditures within an Illinois Youth Employment Grant and an Illinois Violence Prevention Grant for a transfer of $6 million from the general fund to the Fixed Asset Replacement Fund, and for certain expenditures totaling $2 million in the Fixed Asset Replacement Fund. We now find it to be in the best interest of the city to amend ordinance 22-0-47 and the annual budget for the fiscal year beginning May 1st, 2022, even further to recognize revenues sufficiently greater than anticipated in the general fund, homeroom sales tax fund, gaming tax fund, and the water sewer utility enterprise fund, as well as an additional transfer of $4 million from the general fund to the Fixed Asset Replacement Fund, and the receipt of same by the Fixed Asset Replacement Fund and expenditures in the Fixed Asset Replacement Fund made possible by the transfer of funds from the general fund per attachment. Did you want to speak to that?
Sure, I can. This is a very positive amendment as we close out fiscal year 23. We still have an opportunity to recognize revenues that came in far in excess of what we initially anticipated, which in the general fund allowed us to transfer an additional $4 million to the Fixed Asset Replacement Fund for a total of $10 million that went from general fund to fixed assets for replacement of vehicles and equipment for police, fire, public works. We're increasing our, this amendment increases general fund revenues by $12.7 million, over and above what we had anticipated. Home rule sales tax, we're amending that projection by $500,000. The gaming tax fund wasn't initially budgeted because we didn't start receiving money in the gaming tax fund until March of 23, so we want to recognize what we had collected, and that's about $618,000. Fixed Asset Replacement Fund, we want to recognize the $10 million transfer from the general fund, and we want to recognize what we spent that money on. And we spent it on certain lease payments, fire vehicles, public works vehicles, administration vehicles, facility improvements, money for the animal shelter, fire department facility improvements, office furniture. So we want to recognize the use of the additional revenue in the fixed asset fund. And finally, in the water and sewer fund, we didn't budget interest earnings because I didn't want to use the interest earnings as part of our expenditure base. But interest earnings came in at $1 million in the water and sewer fund. We want to recognize that. So it's all very positive. It's an increase in revenues and no additional expenditures. Just a transfer of funds to the fixed asset fund.
Any questions?
I don't have a question, but
Alderman
I'd
Floyd.
like to thank Don and the city staff who have watched the money very closely over the last couple years now, and I'm so grateful we have this Fixed Asset Replacement Fund, which I don't know if Waukegan has ever had. I don't know, maybe someone who's been here a lot longer than me can answer that, but in the past, when we've needed an ambulance, we had to borrow the money. When we needed a snowplow, we had to borrow the money. And with this money in this fund, it's kind of like thinking of it as a savings account in your own home. We can actually buy these things when we need them without paying interest on them. This is huge. This is really huge for us. And to be able to say we're putting more money in this fund from last year is amazing. So I just want people to understand. I know Don tries to explain things in the simplest terms possible, but this couldn't be better, I think, from the news you're giving us. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Alderman Bolton?
Aye.
Alderman Hayes, Alderman Florian?
Aye.
Alderman Guzman?
Aye.
Alderman Newsome?
Aye. Motion carried. Item C, resolution authorizing the procurement of paper and office supplies for fiscal year 2024 from Office Plus Solutions and Supplies Warehouse Direct through Omnia Partners Joint Purchasing Contract in the not-to-exceed amount of $100,000. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Bolton, second by Alderman Florian. Staff recommends that members of the Finance and Purchasing Committee authorize the mayor to adopt a resolution authorizing the procurement of paper and office supplies for fiscal year 2024 from Office Plus Solution and Supplies Warehouse Direct through Omnia Partners Joint Purchasing Contract in the not-to-exceed amount of $100,000. Are there any questions to this motion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Bolton?
Aye.
Alderman Florian?
Aye.
Alderman Guzman?
Aye.
Alderman Newsome?
Aye. Motion carried. Item D, resolution waiving competitive bidding per section 2-458 subsection I-7 good faith waiver and approving the purchase of 2023 Ford Explorer from Curry Motors in the amount not to exceed $40,263. Can I get a motion? Motion by Alderman Bolton,
Second.
second by Alderman Florian. I have a question. This is for, these are going for the police department? Yep.
Yes.
It says the next two are going to the police department. This doesn't specify. That was my question also.
It's going to the police department. This part of 10 that the vehicles they purchased this year. Is there anybody from the police department here? Chief left? I know that they've talked about waiving the bidding process, but the next three they're waiving, and I don't think we need to keep waiving.
The problem with vehicles is they're so hard to get right now.
But
That's
will
the
we
big
be able
problem.
to get them from another dealership, maybe cheaper?
I totally agree with Alderman Newsom. We need to stop waiving these,
I know that they're saying it's difficult to get them, but somebody would be willing to work with the city if they wanted the purchase that could possibly come in lower than 40,000 for. Hi, Chief. I'm item D on the Ford Explorer. The first one is the $40,263, and I know we have three that we're purchasing.
Yes.
I know that you want to waive the competitive bidding process. I know we've been doing that a lot, and I know I understand because it's been so difficult since COVID getting vehicles and stuff. But did we go out and check any other dealerships?
Ma'am, we have been checking everything, every
Okay.
place, everywhere. Ford hasn't even opened up the bidding process for the state yet to order Explorers. These are the only cars we've been able to find, and normally we wouldn't even order those colors, or not, our standard color is black, but we're taking anything that we could locate. We haven't been able to locate any vehicles besides these, and we've been looking for some time.
Okay. I know we have three on here.
Yes.
For, are any of these vehicles going to be going for the co-responder?
Yes, one
Okay.
vehicle is going to the co-responder
Okay.
grant. I believe one was budgeted for, and then the third one is from insurance, from risk management, through risk management's budget.
Oh, and it's going to be used for,
Two of them are going to, one will go to Patrol, one is going to the co-responder program, and then the third one is going to investigations.
Okay, all right. I know we have a motion on the floor. I'm going to read this into the, thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Actually, I got a question before you read.
Question, Alderman Guzman.
Okay, so buying new vehicles, the moment they leave the lot, they drop such in price, so why get a 23, why not a 22 or 21?
There are none available.
Oh, they're absolutely
There's
none?
absolutely zero vehicles available. None.
Okay.
We're
Thank you.
having an extremely hard time finding any vehicles at all. And normally, we would go through the state process, but it's still not open. Because Ford has not opened that process up, and it's probably gonna be delayed even further now because of the strike.
Because of what?
The strike.
Oh, they have,
The Ford,
There's a strike?
GM, yeah, Ford, GM, and Stellantis, all the three major car manufacturers are on strike.
with the prices that they're charging on these cars, and they want to strike?
Because they want to. Have we thought about going to electric yet?
We have not looked into that, no. We'd have to talk to our maintenance department to see what, just the cost containment for all our vehicles, how well they would work. There aren't many agencies out there that are doing it. We don't have any experience with it yet. There's a lot of things we'd have to change. So that's kind of where we're at today.
I can speak a little bit to that as well. That's an infrastructure issue. The city would probably have to do a study to see how much it would cost to turn the fleet electric and to provide the infrastructure to charge the vehicles and maintain them before they could even start to turn over the gas vehicles, because there's a whole expense and infrastructure issue with that as well. But I think it's something that I think some municipalities are looking at.
We run many of our vehicles around the clock. They're 12-hour shifts. Just charging times would be difficult as well.
What is the mileage you guys use a day?
Oh, it does vary.
It doesn't go over 400, right?
Oh, no, not at all, not at all.
So electric vehicle is feasible on the mileage.
Mileage-wise, yes. In the wintertime, it may be different.
Okay.
Alderman Bolton?
Yes, I understand that we can get these same type of vehicles and models for a little cheaper rate. Can you explain how it has been approached?
Yes, that's done through the state bidding process. So once the state opens up, they select a dealer that you go to, and you get the state rate. Once you start placing your orders, they open it up once a year, and it still has not been opened up for 2023.
And isn't that because the dealers won't do that? They won't agree to that because they're able to charge more because there's not enough vehicles out there.
Correct, so Ford will make a lot more money selling it to the dealership so they could put it on the lot than to the government,
Yeah.
to any government. So it's not just us? No, it's not just us, it's every single city having the same issue. We're all competing for the same few vehicles we could find.
Any other vehicle feasible for our usage besides those Explorers?
There are, but what we get with the Explorers is the package that goes along with it. So you have to be able to convert the rear seats to transport prisoners.
Yes. So there's no other vehicle that accommodates that?
Unfortunately, there are very few. There are very few. Chevy Tahoe is one of them, and the Chevy Tahoes were
Too expensive.
Correct. The Dodge has some vehicles, the Dodge Durangos. We've tried looking into them, but we still haven't been able to find those vehicles as well. Part of the constraints are higher on those vehicles when it comes to converting them into police units. The cheapest route for us is the Ford Explorer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
This purchase will be made through Curry Motors, which is current City of Waukegan vendor for vehicle purchases. Curry Motors is an authorized state bid agent in which we have purchased squad cars before. The price for the vehicle is $40,263, which was discounted to us from $46,915, saving $6,652. This vehicle is available now for us and needed to replenish the units fleet. Can I get a roll call, please?
Alderman Bolton,
Aye.
Alderman Florian,
Aye.
Alderman Guzman,
Aye.
Alderman Newsom.
Aye, motion carried. Item E, resolution waiving competitive bidding per section 2-458 subsection I-7 good faith waiver and approving the purchase of a 2023 Ford Interceptor utility from Curry Motors in the amount not to exceed $40,557. Can I get a motion on the floor?
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Alderman Florian. Second.
Aye.
Second by Alderman Bolton. Same as item D. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Alderman Bolton,
Aye.
Alderman Florian,
Aye.
Alderman Guzman,
Aye.
Alderman Newsom.
Aye, motion carried. Item F, resolution waiving competitive bidding per section 2-458, subsection I-7, good faith waiver, and approving the purchase of a 2023 Ford Explorer Police Interceptor from Curry Motors in amount not to exceed $41,708. Can I get a motion on the floor?
I so move.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Bolton, second by Alderman Florian. Are there any questions to this motion?
I do.
Alderman Guzman?
What, Chief, why are there 3 different prices for the same vehicle? And each one keeps on increasing.
Yes, so some of these vehicles have different options in them. That's why the pricing is a bit different on each one. These vehicles we did not order. When we're able to order them from the factory, they're all equipped exactly the same way. These we could not order from the factory. So we're trying to find vehicles that are available.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It doesn't have a TV or anything in there, right? Or any sunroof or anything, right?
No, sir, they do not.
Okay.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Bolton,
Aye.
Alderman Florian,
Aye.
Alderman Guzman,
Aye.
Alderman Newsom.
Aye, motion carried. Item G, resolution approving amendments to the City of Waukegan's grant policy. Can I get a motion on the floor?
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Florian. Second.
I second.
Second by Alderman Bolton. Staff recommends that the members of the Finance and Purchasing Committee authorize the mayor to authorize a resolution approving amendments to the City of Waukegan's grant policy. This policy is there anyone here that wanted to speak about this?
I can speak to it a little bit,
Okay.
as I worked on it. Ms. Large is
Okay.
also here. Essentially what this is doing is the grant policy was a little outdated. It's cleaning up some language. But most of all, one of the things that's unusual about Waukegan that our office noticed is that staff bring a resolution as an agenda item to even apply to a grant, and then they come back once they are able to get the grant, and then they might come back again. And so what this would do is say, unless you're creating a liability for the city, unless it's gonna cause a match, so the city will have to throw in funds, unless it will require hiring of staff, and then there's a fourth component to it, that unless it's going to
Approval of the city.
it needs approval because the grant needs approval, then it won't have to come to council for initial approval, or for an acceptance. Because if the city's just getting money, let's say a grant just says we're gonna dump $100,000 off with the city department to do whatever, no match, no liability required, then it's kind of silly for it to come before council because it's money coming in.
Right. Are there any questions? Being none, roll call, please.
Alderman Bolton,
Aye.
Alderman Florian,
Aye.
Alderman Guzman,
Aye.
Alderman Newsom.
Aye, motion carried. Item H, resolution approving amendments to the City of Waukegan's purchasing policy. Can I get a motion on the floor?
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Florian. Second.
I second.
Second by Alderman Bolton. Are there any questions to this
Yes.
motion?
What is it about?
In the,
I can speak to this a
Okay.
little bit. Again, this was something that staff had asked our office to look into. The purchasing policy, my understanding, had not been revisited for many years. One of the things, again, that's unusual about the purchasing policy that's created some confusion even amongst staff is when is it required to have to seek council approval for contracts or spending pursuant to purchasing? And so the Waukegan Municipal Code says for purchases under $25,000 and under, the mayor has authority to do that. The confusion arises when vendor A, whoever vendor A is, receives a contract from the city to do, project A. And that project may be $15,000. So the mayor can approve that without having to come to council because that's what the code says, and that's very typical in municipalities. It's to create efficiency. The issue is when that same vendor is awarded a different project, regardless of the amount, in a different contract completely, but it's still under $25,000, staff have been bringing it back to council. So essentially what you don't have is one vendor, you technically have a vendor receiving more than $25,000 from the city in a year, but not for the same project, for different projects. So again, it's unusual to see such approvals coming through the council. What it does is, you're getting these one-off or approve a resolution for vendor A for $1,000 or $5,000 for small projects when it had nothing to do with the first contract that they were hired for. So what the purchasing policy would be amended to is basically saying that unless it's for the same contract and it's going to exceed $25,000, that comes to council. If it's not going to exceed $25,000 and it's for different contracts, then it would not have to come to council at that point. Additionally, there's some cleanup language again in the policy, and one of the things I think we added that is going to be helpful is a policy against stringing. So where you have these shell corporations try to come in and pretend like they're different contractors for the purpose of receiving an award. Staff has been really looking at that when they have what are suspicious bidders, and they're saying, wait a minute, this looks like something we received on the same bid from somebody else, but it's really the same person using multiple different LLC names to try to get the bid. So instead of having 4 different contractors, you're having really the same contractor bid for 4 times for the same thing under different names. So there's a policy now against that officially, and it specifically states that when you're doing change orders that will increase the purchase price, especially of a public works contract, 50% or more, that has to be rebid, because that's actually the state law. So.
I had a question regarding that, and I was here before the policy was changed to the 25,000, and it was because different departments were using the same vendor, and those contracts were, A didn't know what B was doing, and that B hired the same contractor. So my question is, I hope we have safeguards in place that doesn't happen. And then also, I know according to the ordinance, it was 5%, 5% less. The price was 5% less than whatever, and we raised it to 50. Why not 25% over the contract, not 50% more than the original contract?
To your first point, I think we've put in the manual for staff to watch out for using the same vendor in multiple different departments for the same thing, right? So I'm just going to use an example. If you're going to order, copier paper for the city, there should be, theoretically, all the departments should be talking together and putting in one order that should be bid out, right, by one
Right.
contractor, because that order is usually gonna be more than 25,000 for a year. So it will require coordination amongst departments. And we noted that in the amendment. As to your second question, so the ordinance amendment would then comport to what we have in the manual. 50% came in, I believe staff went and spoke to the city of Evanston's finance department, and that's the policy that they have, and so that's the policy that staff is recommending be adopted.
So anything less than 50%, well, 25,000, it has to come to the council.
Yeah,
Anything over
50%
25,000 has to
50%
come.
triggers the rebid, usually, is for public works for sure, 50% triggers a rebid, absolutely,
And anything under 25,000, the mayor can
correct,
authorize.
correct.
I have a
Are
question.
there any other questions?
So in reference to what you had indicated, so how do we keep from reduplicating the same vendors? Is there a list that you go by, or how is it navigated?
Well, I think it requires, again, coordination amongst the departments. So specifically during budget time, it would require the departments to actually consider what they're using for the same or similar supplies across the board, and then look to coordinating, you know, a bid for bulk orders. Specifically how finance handles that now, I don't know if Sherry or Don, you want to speak to that? Or how the departments would, you know, coordinate. I don't have an answer to that, but.
What we have to do is identify those goods or services that are used by more than one department. Identify that list and get the departments to coordinate, to work together.
It's actually more economical for the departments to all bid together, because you're gonna theoretically get the best price, hopefully, when you bid it out, as opposed to, you know, one department orders 25,000 here, another department orders 10,000 there. You know, there should be a better coordination. The idea is there would be better coordination amongst the departments, and better budgeting for that purpose.
So, does this need some more tweaking before we actually go into a vote for this? That's what it sounds like.
The process is going to be the same. Only difference is that the departments won't have to come back and get authorization if it's under $25,000 per project.
Right, so just because it's the same vendor, so if you have a concrete vendor that gets a project to repair a sidewalk, and then 3 months later, they get a separate contract to, repair the streets, those two different contracts are signed. If, they're both under 25,000, or the grand total is under 25,000, the idea is they wouldn't have to come back here. They're treated as separate contracts. Right now, the city is treating them, even though it's under 25,000, they're bringing it back. The staff are bringing it back before you each and every time, even if it's for $1,000 or $2,000.
At the same thing.
Yeah, the same thing, they've budgeted for it. The thing to watch out for, which I think we've tried to address in the policy, is this stringing issue of, again, same person's creating multiple LLCs, is trying to create some sort of fraudulent action upon the city. I'm not saying that that's happening, but it is something that insurance carriers are warning, and auditors are warning cities across the country about.
So, what is to say that somebody wants a project done, they said, well, it's gonna cost $75,000, and then, but you know what, so you don't have to go to council and say it's $75,000.
They
We're
would
gonna
have to.
we're gonna split it up into like 4 different projects.
There's
One is
nothing
called the
stopping that from
wall.
happening now.
A, that's true. B,
So
again,
it basically needs some more tweaking, so I think we should hold off on this.
well, it's really up to the project manager of the department. That's why you have professional staff to bid out the projects. They wouldn't be bidding it out in parts. It's not up to the contractor, it's up to the staff how they bid out those. And I could tell you right now, all our RFPs go through the law department and they go through finance to look at first. So when, for instance, Public Works, Shannon's bidding out for a project, she's looking at the whole of the project. She's not bidding it out piece by piece by piece unless she has bid out an RFP and vendors are only bidding on, 3/4 of the project, then she might have to go back out. But generally speaking, that's up to the staff to coordinate to make sure that they're putting out a comprehensive RFP for bid.
Can this be added onto the language,
For
not to piece it out?
not to piece it out.
That's why I said it needs some more tweaking. So I put a motion to put this on hold.
I have a question.
Alderman Bolton?
So if we hold it, aren't we holding up the process? I mean,
It'll
how
be-
is that going to look?
It would be held in committee, and then we'd have to come back and see if we can get it approved. So yes, it would be held. It'd be held, but if there's specific language that the aldermen want in this, we're happy to take back that feedback and work on it a little bit more.
Let's work on the language. Motion to put on hold.
Did everybody read Exhibit A in your packet? Actually, the only thing that we're doing is changing percentages. That's all we're doing, is changing the percentages. The original contract, or the original ordinance states, in the event a contract necessitates any increase in the original contract price by 5%, of the city council would have to approve the annual amount, but not to exceed $5,000. What we're doing is changing where you have several departments that are using the same vendor. This is my understanding. Several departments using the same vendor, but in one department, they may not have gone over the $25,000, but the two departments together have gone over the $25,000. That's why they keep bringing it back to the council. It's not the, say for instance, contract or Project A. It's Project A and Project B together is more than the $25,000, not just the one contract. So that's why they keep bringing it back to us. It could be an increase of $1,000. They're bringing it back to us because the two or the three contracts together are more than the $25,000, which we had in our original ordinance. So what they're trying to do is say, per contract, if it doesn't go over $25,000 per contract, it doesn't have to keep coming back here to the council. If it's not over 50% triggers that it has to go out for bid again. If it's under $25,000, the mayor can approve it. If it's over $25,000, it has to come back to the council per project, not per vendor.
Yes.
I
Right.
understand the ordinance. I understand what they're asking for. I just see too many loopholes, and I don't like the loopholes. I want them closed.
There's not, and look,
The language needs to be changed.
the issue.
I mean, you already said that it needs to be changed. I put a motion to put on hold to figure this out.
Do we need a second to hold it? We need a second to hold it over? We don't have a second to hold it. Are there any other questions? I'm ready to move forward with it with the 25,000, but I know that we can bring it back at any time, and if it needs to be the 50%, changing it to 25%.
So I will note that item H, as you've just explained, the purchasing policy does coordinate with item I, which is an amendment to the code. So to pass one and not the other would create a contradiction. I just want to make sure that's clear.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
And we
can you
already,
repeat that, please?
we just passed the,
Item H is the amendments to the purchasing policy, which will mimic in part item I, which is a code
the
amendment.
next one.
So to pass one and not the other would create an inconsistency at this point. Just want to point that out.
So
All
my
right.
understanding is coordinate with C, D, E, and F?
No,
or just
H
C?
and I.
H and
I go together.
Okay, thank you.
For lack of a second, roll call, please.
Alderman Bolton,
Aye.
Alderman Florian,
Aye.
Alderman Guzman,
No.
Alderman Newsom,
Aye. Motion carried. Item I, ordinance amending Division 2, Article 6 regarding change orders in the city of Waukegan. Staff recommends that the mayor and city council approve an ordinance amending Division Article 6 regarding change orders in the city of Waukegan. Can I get a motion on the floor and then discussion?
So moved.
I second.
Alderman Florian, second by Alderman Bolton. Prior to the proposed amendment, in the event a contract necessitates any increase in the original contract price of 5% or more, or exceeds $5,000 of the city council approval annual amount, the change order must be brought before the mayor and city council for approval. The city is amending Division 2, Article 6 of the ordinance regarding change orders to be consistent with Illinois Public Works Contract Change Order Act 50 ILCS 525/1 ET-SEQ. Change orders to contracts when the original contract is $25,000 or more, which increase or reduce the contract price by 50% or more and or in excess of $25,000 must be submitted to the city council for approval. Are there any questions?
I have a question, just to make sure I understand. So if there's a project, right, and we, it gets approved, we're doing it, and isn't that just one project itself? So if they weren't to bid for something else, that would be a whole different project, right?
Yes.
Yes, it's by contract
By contract.
and
So
by bid, yeah.
So how common is this where contracts are changing over 25,000?
Well, it really shouldn't be happening much, because when you put out an RFP, the RFP should be comprehensive enough and contain language that the bidder should make their best effort to estimate that cost. Now, things come up, so like, I'll give an example. If they're doing, a road improvement, and in so doing, they noticed, there's a water main break, and I'm just making up a crazy example, but that same contractor can expeditiously and cheaply fix that. That's a change order because that wasn't contemplated in the original contract. So things like that happen, but it should never happen where you have a full bid put out, there's a response to the bid's accepted, contract signed, and then all of a sudden the contractor comes back and says, this is costing me a little extra. I think I want to come back and ask you all for an increase in cost of another 10, 15, 20,000.
And for our current fiscal year right now, how many times have we had to do that for a specific project, like a major project?
I don't know. I think that would be an answer between Finance, Public Works, and
Usually.
They always come in front of us.
Usually
So-
Public Works.
But not
Is-
anymore after this.
no. You would still come before council under the parameters of the amendment. So 50% or more, and over 25,000.
And 50% or more would be, triggers a rebid anyway.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Roll
All-
call, please.
Alderman Bolton,
Aye.
Alderman Florian,
Aye.
Alderman Guzman,
No, until the
Alderman Newsom.
language gets fixed.
Aye. Motion carried. We have all of our reports and communication in our packet, and then we also got a little streamlined one. for the sake of time, does anybody have any questions regarding any of the reports and communications? Being none, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Motion by Alderman Bolton. Second by Alderman Florian to adjourn at 6:20. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.